All right. We're here.
Yay.
Yay. So, welcome to the Sunroom, everyone. We are so excited you're here and we're excited to get started. This is our first official Sunroom talk, and we're so glad you're a part of it. And so, my name's Michelle, and I am a co host of the Sunroom Talks. And
And my name is Hannah, and I am the other co host of Sunroom Talks.
so, the purpose of the Sunroom Talks is coaching conversations. Um, Hannah and I, we're going to get into more of how the Sunroom Talks came to be. And so I'm going to just jump in by sharing with you, first of all, that the Sunroom Talks is an extension of SOAR, SOAR Cafe and Farms. And SOAR exists to make a way for healing, housing, and life skills for women survivors of human trafficking, addiction, sexual trauma, and incarceration. And SOAR also stands for She Overcomes and Rises. So that's the work that we do here at SOAR. And I first want to share with everybody just how SOAR came to be, and then how that has evolved into this Sunroom Talks with Hannah and I.
Oh, and just get ready, folks. This is going to be a good one.
So I'm just going to share with you how SOAR came to be. So back in 2016, my youngest son, was dating a young woman, and I knew at the time that something was going on for her, but I didn't know exactly what it was. And eventually, I was trying to get to know her. There was always kind of some resistance there. And then eventually they moved in together. And so I really wanted to get to know her. And it seemed to be, again, met with a lot of resistance. But one day I got up and I was on my phone scrolling on Facebook like we all do. And I come across what is an M Live, which is like our local newspaper website. Article is a photograph of a woman, and they were looking for this woman and wanted to know, it's like, do you know this woman? So I was staring at it and wondering, like, do I? And I quickly realized, thought to myself, no, like, just nope. And on I went. And later that day, my son came over to the house and was all upset and said, well, did you see? And I said, did I see what? And he said, Facebook. And I said, Facebook. And he said, Danielle. And I was like, oh, okay. I did know that woman. And so what I knew for sure is that Danielle would be going away, and my son was horribly upset, and I needed to help him. So my focus shifted to, helping him cope with everything that was happening, and figured that's where that whole story with them would probably end. Well, the next day, I'm up cleaning my house. I put music on, and I'm sure you've probably
Oh, yeah.
had God speak to you through song lyrics
hmm
before. And so as I'm cleaning, the first thing I hear is there is thought to my role. And it got my attention. And then the next thing I heard was, it matters how this ends. And all I could see was her face. And it just broke my heart. And I knew I needed to go see what I could do to help her. So I went down to the county jail and walked in, and there she was, and really surprised to see me of all people. And
Oh, I bet she was really surprised.
mhm. And I said to her, do you need anything? And she said, no. And I said, are you okay? And she said, yes. And I said, okay, look, I have no idea what this is going to look like or mean, but if you would have me, I would just like to walk with you while you go through all of these things and see how I can support you in it.
Can I ask a question?
Hmm.
Did you at that time know what you were doing?
No idea.
You just went and visited her, and that's it.
Yeah.
You had no idea, like, what this was going to turn into. You just,
No, that
did you,
wasn't
like, hear from God? Like, he just said, just go visit her?
he what happened was, in the moment I was standing there cleaning my house and hearing these lyrics and seeing her face, God did the most incredible thing, which was he poured out his love for her onto me.
Mm.
I could
Wow.
feel his presence and his intense love for her. And it overwhelmed me to the point that the only thing to do was to go.
Yeah.
It's like the love of God moves you
Right.
even in times when you don't
Mhm.
know where you're moving to or what's going to happen, you know? So
Yeah.
you're just following,
Yeah.
you're following the love.
Yeah.
And I've never experienced anything like that, and I have never experienced anything like that since, with that kind of
Mhm.
intensity.
Yeah.
Um so I was just by the seat of my pants, you know, just doing what I felt God was calling me to do,
Yeah.
because he the I wish I had words in the English language to explain the degree and the power
Mhm.
of the love that he had for her.
Yeah.
And I could
Wow.
feel it. It was so intense. Um so yeah, so I started going to all of her court dates,
Mhm.
and I started going visiting her every week, and um eventually she was sentenced and went to prison. And so I started going to prison to visit her every week. And um, I just came to love that time so much. I would go on Thursdays, and Thursdays became like my most favorite days because, first and foremost, you can't take your cell phone into the prison, right? So
Mhm.
there's like you get to disconnect from that.
Mhm.
And then you just get to go be in this bubble where you get to sit with another person in a
Mhm.
space and just be there with and for them. And
Yeah.
it's the one of the most powerful things you can do.
Yeah.
And it just thrilled me to get to.
Yeah. That's an honor.
It is an honor and a privilege
Mhm.
to walk with somebody like that. And the fact that she was willing to let me
Mhm.
and trusted me,
Yeah.
um, yeah, that still overwhelms me.
Mhm.
And then as I sat in that room, oftentimes, you know, like, I don't know, just seeing there was this whole giant room is filled with women who have similar stories and circumstances. And
Mhm.
as odd as it might sound, it just lit me up. You know, I just would look around that room and see so much love and potential.
Well, probably because as I'm processing this with you, if God overwhelmed you with the love for just one girl,
Mm-hmm.
think about all the room full of women that were in there that had made mistakes, ended up in prison. God loves them just as much.
Absolutely.
So if you think about all the love that was in there,
Mm-hmm. Right. And it's
that
like
is
it
overwhelming.
is overwhelming, and it's just so counterintuitive to think you're going to go into a prison and feel all that love.
Right.
You know, like it just
You
doesn't go
definitely
together.
don't think that. You're like, love in prison? Sure. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Right. It's
Yeah.
only God.
Yeah.
And so some time went on, a few months, and one day I said to Danielle, I said, "Hey, would you like to do a Bible study together sometime?" And she said, "Sure." I said, "Great. I'm going to send you a book, and I'll have the book. We'll read it, and we'll just talk about it when I come to visit." And so
Hmm.
she said, "Okay." And I went home that week after asking her that, and all of a sudden I started seeing all these things pop up in my awareness about Thistle Farms, which is an organization in Nashville, Tennessee, that I had actually learned about a year before meeting Danielle. And I was completely in love with their mission and what they do, which is what we do now. But
Hmm.
at that time, I really didn't know. I wanted to support their mission, but I didn't know what to do. And so I ended
Hmm.
up buying a bunch of their candles that they were selling, and raising money and awareness around that. And anyway, that kind of went on the shelf. I thought that's where it was going to end. But I get back home after seeing Danielle that time, and I start seeing all these things about Thistle Farms showing up again. So I just paused and I said, God, why am I seeing all these things about Thistle Farms? And he said, because you're going to do this work. And
Okay, wait, pause. I'm sorry, I gotta do this. Okay. When God says, yeah, like you're gonna do this work, I'm putting myself in your shoes.
yeah.
Yeah, okay, I'm gonna have this big, huge nonprofit that helps all these women do all sorts of things. I mean, tell me how you felt in that moment.
Well, I'm weird, so I think everything has to have a title or it doesn't matter, right? So
Right.
my brain immediately went to this is what I said to him in response. I don't even know what I'd call that.
I love how that's your first response.
Yeah.
It's like not like, no, I don't think I can do that. It's like, well, what would I call it?
Well, I've walked with God closely enough to know that when he says a thing and it comes like that, it's already a thing.
Yeah.
It's done.
Mm-hmm.
So I have just learned because I've spent many a years
Mm-hmm.
and I still do sometimes get into the like, what are you talking about? Or how is that going to happen? Or are you talking to me? Those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes, more frequently, I just go right to, well, if you're telling me, then it's done. So what are we going to do now? And so I go right to, well, what are we going to call that?
God knows you're a go-getter,
uh,
so he knew you could handle it.
well, and I just, like I said, and you all probably know this too, so I can be preaching to the choir here, but it's just that relationship, you get to know him, and he's
Yeah.
just like your dad, right? So when
Mm-hmm.
your dad tells you a thing in a certain way,
Mm-hmm.
you know when he means business, and when he
Yeah.
says a thing a certain way, it's time to pay attention.
Yeah.
And I knew he meant what he was saying,
Yeah.
so I was just
Mm.
trying to like get into agreement and go to the next logical step.
Yeah.
What are we going to call this thing? And so he said, and I heard him say, you'll call it soar.
Mm.
And I said, soar. And he said, because it will give them wings.
Mm.
And really
Every time you say that, it gives me chills. Oh,
it gets my heart every time still too, because
yeah.
I still hear him saying it and his heart for that, that
Right.
like, that's what he truly wants for them,
Right.
and that's his heart. So it just, anyway, it always gets me. And anyway, so I was like, all right, Lord, if you say so. You know what? I don't have any idea how this is going to happen right now, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm up for it. Let's do it. So
Mm-hmm.
the next day I get an email from Danielle at prison, and she says to me, I can't wait to see you on we are going to soar through Bible study. And I was like, I was reading it on my phone. I was
Right.
almost chucked my phone because I was like, she did not
Because
just say that.
nobody just says the word soar all the time like that. And now all of a sudden it just starts popping up.
Yep. And I was like, okay. So a few days later went to go visit her again, and I walk in and she's like, oh, hey, I gotta tell you. I'm like, no, sit down. I gotta ask you something. I'm all worked up. She was like, what? And I said, did I ever tell you about Thistle Farms? And she's like, what's Thistle Farms? I thought, I said, did I ever say the word soar to you? And she said no. And I said, okay. So of course I tell her the backstory.
Right.
And she says, well, do you want to hear something really weird? And I said, yeah. And she's like, I actually deleted that word when I typed it because I thought it was a weird word to use. But she said, but something told me to put it back in. So I did. I said,
Of
oh.
course.
I said, oh yeah, something did. And
Uh-huh.
so we were kind of laughing, and she says, Michelle, I have goosebumps. I said, me too. And she said, I think this is happening. I'm like, oh, it's happening.
Yep. It's a thing.
It was a thing. There's a thing and there's a
And
thing.
there's a
And
thing.
this was a thing.
Period.
Yes. And I know people know what I'm talking about when I say that.
They know.
Yeah, they do. So, a couple months later, went down to Nashville to spend some time at Thistle Farms and learn how they do what they do.
Mm-hmm.
Came back. Oh, and I have to throw in because it's just fun. Just before I left to go down to Thistle Farms to learn that, I had lunch with my friend Tracy, who's a pastor here in town.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been good friends for a while. And so I was telling her all of this that had been going on and that I was getting ready to go to Nashville and all of that. And we had met at this Olive Garden, and I was walking out. I told her, well, God says it's going to be called SOAR. She's like, well, all right then. And so I was kind of like, then that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so I walk out of the restaurant, and at the time I was driving this black Honda CRV. Parked right next to me was another black Honda CRV. And I just was like, oh, isn't that funny? Haha. Whatever. I get in my car and start to back out. And as I start to pull out, I look down at the bumper of that other car, and there's a big round circle bumper sticker that says SOAR on it. I literally yelled out loud. I was like, ah! And I took a picture of it.
It's really happening.
Yes.
Well, I just love how God confirms. And like, he doesn't like yell down in a voice like, you will call it SOAR. It's like he confirms through like bumper stickers.
Yeah. Lord
in
will
just
use a bumper
really
sticker.
weird ways.
Yep. And it was, so I took the picture, and then I ended up sending it to my pastor friend. I said, as I walked out of the restaurant, this is what I saw. And she's like, it's already done. And it was.
Yep.
And
He just confirmed it.
he did.
Yeah.
And what was really fun too is when I got down to Nashville, and before I went into I sat in my car, I was so nervous. I was crying in my car because I was like, I knew when I went in, like my life was going to change. When I came back out, it was going to be different, and it was a lot,
Yeah.
and I went in, and I was sitting through this presentation, right? And the founder of Thistle Farms, her name is Becca Stevens, and she was kind of off to the side preparing her part of the presentation or whatever. And I don't know what possessed me or made me think I could. Here's a whole room full of people, right?
Right.
I pop up out of my seat, walk over to her, and I'm like, Becca, I'm so sorry to bother you. I know you're getting ready for your presentation, but like God showed up and he told me I'm going to do this work, and like it's going to be called SOAR. And then there's Danielle, and I'm blubbering, like literally crying and blubbering this story at her. I think back about that, and I thought, oh, she must have thought, okay, this weirdo.
This lady is crazy.
And so I'm like saying all and she goes, wait. And I said, what? She said, first of all, what's her name? And I said, Danielle. She said, okay. So she took this book, Find Your Way Home, that she had written with the other ladies of Thistle Farms, and she wrote a note to Danielle in it, and gave it back to me. And that just blessed me, because I knew in that minute, of course, she got it. Like she got the love piece and how important it is that is the foundation and comes first. Like these ladies and what happens to them is the most important thing, right?
Yeah,
and so that blew me away. And I was in love with it right away.
Yeah.
And then she's like, okay, now I have a question. And I said, what? She goes, so what's the name of your organization? I said, well, and again, I go back to the blubber. Well, God said, and then he said SOAR and blah, blah. And she's like, I'm going to ask you again. What's the name of your organization? And I was like, I'm thinking, what does she want here? I'm thinking I'm telling her, and I'm like, I don't know, because God said it was SOAR, but I'm trying to figure this whole thing out, blah, blah. And she looked at me, she says, no, the name of your organization is SOAR, and you need to go home and start this stop talking about it and be about it.
Yeah.
Women are dying. And I was just like wrecked. I just stood there. I was like, my mouth gapped open.
Right.
And it's like, don't talk about it, be about it. Right?
Yep.
That was like a reality
women
check.
are dying.
Literally.
Like she had to say it to you like that.
Yes. And what's interesting, so it was kind of like almost that slap across the face. Like, get it together.
Stop. There's women that are dying out here.
Get it done. Stop blubbering. Stop talking about it. These are my words, not hers. But like, go do the thing, right? So I was like, whoa, okay.
Well, you had a Moses at the burning bush moment. It's
No doubt.
like, these people in Israel are slaves. Like, free them. Help them get free.
Yeah.
And you needed to have that moment to to realize, okay, let's stop crying about it. Let's do it.
Yeah. And so I did. And
Mhm.
so we did. Like I came back from there and
Mhm.
um got with my pastor friend again. We started telling people, we formed a board, and then here we are 6 years later, and we have a beautiful home. We
Mhm.
have mentoring that we do in the county jail. We have mentoring we do at the prison. We also offer a community support group. And so these are all ways that we connect, mentor, and help women heal. And
Mhm.
it is the best journey.
Yeah.
It is the most love filled, glorious, wonderful experience. And,
Mhm.
I can't emphasize that enough. I also have to say, just as a side note, a couple years after that interaction with Becca, I was going back down every year to visit. And I went back, I think it was 2 years after that. And we
Mhm.
were in a workshop situation. So she was there and she came over and was saying hello. Um, and I shared that experience. I reminded her of that was my first interaction with her, and
Mhm.
she's like, "I would never say that." And I was like, she's like, "I didn't say that. I would never say that." And she goes, and then she ended up letting me know that when at she asked me what year it was, and I told her, and she said, "Okay, well, that year right before that workshop that was going on, I think she said they had lost, like, I don't remember if she said two or four, like,
Mm.
ladies almost like back to back.
Oh.
And so she was in the thick of it.
Yeah,
When
that's why
I
she said what she
Yeah,
said.
because that reality was in her face, that
Yeah.
we sometimes we lose ladies too, and
Mhm.
it's hard on our hearts.
Yeah, it is.
And so anyway,
Mm.
but that was really interesting for me to learn later perspective wise, because it served a purpose in the moment because it lit a fire under
Yeah.
me. And then later on to
Mm.
understand, and even having had that experience
Mhm.
myself, even in the first couple of years, we met
Mhm.
some ladies um, at jail who that their addiction was an issue, and
Mhm.
they didn't make it, and it's
Mhm.
really hard when that it's heartbreaking,
Mhm.
but it never gets old, or it's always worth it. It's just always,
Mhm.
even with all the heartbreak involved, it's so worth it.
Well, yeah, because you get to also see the love and the glory in it too.
Yeah.
It's like whenever you do this work, it's always you see the good and the bad.
Yep. It's
There's both pieces there.
And just like life, I mean, that's just
Yeah.
life, right?
Yeah.
It's the highs, the lows, and everything in
Mhm.
between, and we get to make a choice about do how wholeheartedly we want to be in all of that.
Mhm.
And for me personally, my one of my goals in this life is to live full on with my whole heart wide open, even though
Mhm.
I know what that means. I
Mhm.
know what the other side of that can mean. But for me, it's either that, or if it isn't that, it's just existing. I want to be full on loving all the people and all the
Mhm.
things as a part of this work. It's what Jesus does with us, and it just feels right and good and
Mhm.
hard and messy and frustrating and awesome,
Yeah.
all at the same time.
Mhm.
But to me, there isn't another way to live.
No.
There really isn't. It's like the any other way would be just existing, and um it's very hard and very wonderful.
Yeah. All at the same time.
Yeah. And so because, so SOAR essentially was born out of that relationship with Danielle. God used that to teach me the value of just holding a space of love and belief for another individual, and just standing
Mhm.
there saying, you know what? I don't care what you do. I'm just going to love you
Yeah.
because that's what God does for me.
Yeah.
I just love you. This isn't about what you did or,
Mm-hmm.
or even what you're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
I just love you, period.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I like to share is that the crime is what had Danielle sitting in prison,
Mm-hmm.
but Danielle was not just a criminal. She was an addict.
Mm-hmm.
And she
Yeah.
wasn't just an addict. She had experienced abuse in her life that led her
Mm-hmm.
there. And
Mm-hmm.
that is the story
Yeah.
again and again and again, is that it's a little different package, but same stuff, right?
Yeah. It's just the crime is the behavior. The
Exactly.
behavior is the symptom, but there's the root to it.
Exactly.
And you have to, it takes people
Mm-hmm.
to want to get to know someone,
Yes.
spend time with them, love them, care for them, relate to them in order to figure out what made this person want to do this behavior
Right.
and what's like behind that.
Yeah.
And I think people get so caught up in the crime
Mm-hmm.
or the person, the criminal, if you want to say,
Yep.
and said like we need to investigate. Okay, what's behind that? That because the crime that's just the surface level,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a reason why. There's a root under there that needs to get out and be pulled out, and it's done in love.
Yep. Always. And 2 points about that is that one, we need each other.
Mm-hmm.
People need people,
Yeah.
period. We need each other
Mm-hmm.
to heal, to grow, to find freedom, to get back to wholeness and sustainability. Like people, we need each other, period.
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 Mm-hmm.
And the other thing too is that so often I think that once upon a time I was guilty of this because I had family members who were in prison, and you tend to think, a lot of people think, I thought, you did this to yourself. You're Go live your consequence, right? And they
Mm-hmm.
get to be, and they're written off,
Yeah.
they get written off.
Mm-hmm.
And but there is so much opportunity
Mm-hmm.
in that space when God sits a person down, because it's really his grace. First and
Mm-hmm.
foremost, he's saving their lives. He's
Mm-hmm.
getting their attention. He's providing an opportunity for them to shift,
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yep.
it's like when they're in that space, this is the perfect opportunity to come alongside and say, you know what? How about if we try a different path?
Yeah.
How about if we talk about something different than what you've already experienced and lived,
Yep.
because you're worth it?
That's the crazy thing that people need to understand is like when someone is in that space,
Mm-hmm.
in this like hopefully humbling moment, and this moment where they're like realizing what they're doing, what they did, and they're sober to think about it,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Or whatever, and no distractions around them.
Which is huge.
That is not just an opportunity for them, but an opportunity for us
Mm-hmm.
to get in that with them to say, okay, let's talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
Let's figure this out.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really an opportunity for all of us.
100%. And another thing that I just have to say, and I think you mentioned this, is the love piece, because
Mm-hmm.
when I went to go visit Danielle, and when I kept going back there, I didn't have a clue or an idea that I was creating anything.
Mm-hmm.
The only reason I moved was because of love.
Yeah.
All I knew was I needed to go give love to this person
Yeah.
because God put it on me for her. And it's like, I cannot emphasize enough, that's all you need. That is all you need. I don't care if you've never done a thing before. I don't care if it looks scary, if it's intimidating. If you're rooted and motivated in love, and I'm not
Yeah.
talking about the mamby-pamby, rainbows and unicorns kind of thing. I'm talking about the power
Mm-hmm.
of the love of God on, in, and through a person. Like when you're functioning in that, all the rest is semantics, right? You're
And
just doing the love.
It makes me want to sing The Power of Love by Celine Dion.
Yeah.
Shout out to that song.
But it's a
Well, that's
for
because
real thing.
God empowers you
Mm-hmm.
to sit down with that person and talk with them and be with them in that. And love isn't just the rainbows, butterflies. Look, oh yeah, like we can do this. I love you. No, it's like love is like sitting down and saying, tell me what you did. Tell me the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the real stuff, the hard stuff,
Yeah, it's
the
caring enough.
dirty stuff.
Yeah, it's caring enough to dive into that place with
Yes.
someone. It's the care and the stand and the commitment that you're willing to make for another life because you care. Period. And it's like when that's going on, there's no stopping you,
Yeah.
and doors fly open and people respond because it's the most powerful thing there is.
Yeah. It's getting with someone in their mess, their dirt, their grime. I mean, it's being here at the storehouse. We do this with ladies all the time. We're in the middle of their stuff.
Yeah.
And that's what they need. They need, like when you garden something, you got to put the dirt in. You got to when you repot a plant, you put it in the dirt. So your hands are getting dirty.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing.
Yep.
This isn't for somebody who just wants to like look fabulous and, snazzy. No, this is dirty work,
Big time.
but good dirty work.
So good. And
So good.
we say that a lot. Like, this is where ladies come to be messy.
Yeah.
This is where all their old stuff comes up and we get to walk it out and, think about a new way of doing things that is going to benefit them going forward. And even how to love one another in it. And the peer relationships that happen for the ladies amidst that is amazing. I got plenty of stories, but we'll save those for another time. But anyway, but that is what we do here at SOAR. And so speaking about coming back to why we're doing what we're doing here and in the Sunroom Talks is that all the messy conversations, all the heart to hearts, all the tears, the laughter, the business that needs to happen happens in the sunroom right here in this room where we're sitting with all of you. And Hannah and I would have these conversations and struggles and all the things as we help ladies walk these things out here in this room. And we would end these conversations so often just saying,
and this is why we need a podcast.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I have always talked about having a podcast, and I just knew that was the thing that God had been calling me to do personally, because I get in these conversations, as you see, I'm just interrupting Michelle, like just saying things, asking questions, whatever. And anyways, this is just what we do all the time. She'll say a thing, I'll say a thing, she says a thing, like it just goes back and forth. And whoever's in here in the room actually it's like this, and we just get going. And then I noticed that like when Michelle and I call each other on the phone, we're like having 3-hour conversations on the phone.
Easily.
Literally about everything. And so at any time we get into this like deep conversation about like why we do what we do, or just thinking about like how we can help people move forward and help them heal and grow, we are always ending the conversation with, and this is why we need a podcast. We're just going to start recording the conversations, because they're not just helpful for our ladies here. They're not helpful just for the people we serve. They're helpful for us.
Yeah. And our hope is that they're going to be helpful for so many people, because I feel like how they kind of go around a little bit and in and through, and that where they go, there's going to be something in there for somebody.
Oh, for anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so good.
So good. And God's just really been encouraging us around this podcast. So we just know that he's got something in this for everybody that's watching,
Yes.
because he wants to bless all of you through through these conversations, because as we learn from them, I often like to say too that when I went to go see Danielle, like my heart and hope were, well, let me see what I can do to bring something here that's going to help, right? And I didn't even fathom in that moment that she was going to teach me
Yes.
so much more than I was ever going to teach her. And that continues to happen as we walk out relationships with women in these circumstances and process. And so whatever we glean, we want to share.
Yeah. Yep. That happens to me all the time. It's awesome.
It's all. Have you ever been having a conversation with yourself and God, and you're kind of like, talking, especially, this is my favorite. I'm complaining or processing something with him about my own children. And I'm like, Lord, I think I just need to tell him this, this, and this, or, whatever it is. And I often will feel him kind of go, and what about you? Like, maybe
That happened to me all the time as a school social worker. I would be telling a kid, I worked with elementary kids for a little while, and I would be telling a kid something or sharing something, about social emotional learning or whatever it was. And I just like, even though I wouldn't point my finger at them, but it kind of felt like that. So I'm like, you gotta blah, 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 right? And I just felt like all the fingers pointing back at me. And it was like God was saying, and what about you, Hannah? Because you struggle with this just like 5-year-old Timmy struggles with this. And I'm like, oh man, this is all the way bad. Like, this is really bad. I'm trying to teach these kids something. And God is like, and you need to learn from that too. So
yeah,
that's why, going back to your point about we need people. We need each other, because even when you're trying to teach or coach somebody on something, you can learn from it too.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter age. It doesn't matter. You can learn from anyone, anytime, anywhere. Age is irrelevant. It doesn't, man, woman, adult, child, doesn't matter. You can learn from anybody.
The most humbling thing is when God is teaching you a lesson through like a 7-year-old.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
That's the most humbling thing that I think anyone can experience, because you're like, wow, a 7-year-old just preached to me.
Yeah.
That is nuts.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. And that happens a lot. So yeah, that's what we're doing here. And so our hope is going forward that we're going to sit down here with all of you and have conversations about the things that we know ladies are working through, that God brings to mind for us. We just love the Lord, and we want to share whatever he's bringing, because we think that he has things to give you, and we're just the messengers.
Yeah.
So we're just showing up, bringing whatever he gives us to bring.
Yeah. So we should probably share a little bit too about how this even became like, well, we kind of shared a little bit about the sunroom, but how that even the name became a thing.
Yeah.
We should share that, and then we should also let them know a little bit about ourselves.
All right.
But I can go ahead and share too. So I had an intern here at SOAR, who, it was her last day, and so we threw a celebration party for her. And we asked her, what was your favorite thing about working here at SOAR? And she thought about it, and she said, probably the sunroom talks. And at the time, Michelle and I knew we were going to have a podcast. We just really didn't know exactly what that was going to be, what the name of it was, all those kinds of logistics. And as soon as she said sunroom talks, I looked at Michelle and I was like, we were like tracking. We knew that was a thing. And it's so it was kind of cool. Shout out to Sophie.
Hey, Sophie.
We love you, Sophie. She named our podcast. She didn't even know it.
Yeah.
But it just is so fitting because we we sit in here in the sunroom all the time, and um we have staff meetings here, we
House
have
meetings.
house meetings, we have devotions, um and then we have difficult conversations with ladies too, and we have very healing conversations where you got everybody crying because the Lord's just doing an amazing work. And
Mhm.
I mean, there's this revelations, epiphanies. I mean, all the things happen here. And we just thought about how like beautiful this is such a beautiful place where God comes in and does all kinds of work
Mhm.
in this room, and we talk about everything, and then we end up saying this is why we need a podcast.
Yeah. And it makes me come up, think of a question. And, I'm a coach. This happens regularly, but just, makes me wonder, just tossing out to all of you, whatever your sunroom is, where's your space in your house or your,
Mhm.
whatever that you go to hash things out with God or one another. And if you don't have a space like that, I encourage you to make
Mhm.
one that's just you and God space. Even,
Yeah.
just it's important to have that space to be quiet or safe and alone,
Mhm.
or together with those you need to talk to. That's just kind of your sacred space of that work or those conversations. It's really it'd be really empowering for families, to think about creating a space like that in your
Mhm.
home where, like, when it's time for
Mhm.
a conversation
Mhm.
that needs to happen,
Yeah.
that you all know that when you go to that space, like we all know
Mhm.
here in this house, when you go to the sunroom, it has in one way or another, this conversation is going to have purpose.
Yeah.
And so I just want to encourage you to do that in your homes as families too, because it's really incredibly helpful.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Michelle, why don't you told them how you started this,
Hmm.
and how SOAR got started, how we started Sunroom Talks. Why don't you let people know a little bit about yourself and who you are?
Yeah, so we are here in Jackson, Michigan. I was born and raised here. I did leave for about 5 years and then move back. But I am married to Mark for going on 30 years.
Yay!
Yay!
We need the
And
applause button.
I have 3 kids. I have 2 sons and my stepdaughter, and I have some grandkids.
Mm.
Yay, Nash and Junie.
Yes.
And so that's my family and kind of
Mhm.
my little bit of that background. And then I my whole life I have always been excited about helping women reach their potential and becoming who God made them to be. That has what has driven pretty much everything I have ever done in the way of work or
Mhm.
effort, and also travel and adventure. I was a travel agent for a time, but I've also been involved with helping youth in the community. I've been involved through the school system, trying
Mhm.
to help moms, kids. So
Mhm.
always in somewhat of a helping field of sorts. And then always doing lay counseling, um, and then became certified as a life coach and started working with personal leadership development. That's been my
Mhm.
thing. Um,
Thing. That's another
it's
thing.
another thing is that um, no matter what the circumstances, when I look at, I get so excited when I
Mhm.
meet ladies because instantly I am tuned into all of their potential, right? And
Mhm.
that just fires me up. And my heart and desire is always to lead women to learn how to lead themselves
Yeah.
first and foremost. We do
Mhm.
that by getting with God.
Mhm.
We need to know who we are and whose we are, and that is what the foundation of how to lead. And then and just building from there into who God uniquely made that woman and how she's going to flourish and fly and all of that. So
Mhm.
God did a good thing in choosing Soar as the name, because
Mhm.
really that's
Mhm.
ultimately giving women wings,
Yeah.
but in who they are, in whose they are.
Yeah.
And when you've got that nailed down, sky's the limit.
Yeah.
And so I
No
just,
pun intended.
yeah, exactly. But nothing fires me up like watching women grow and learn how to lead themselves
Yeah.
and their
And
lives.
speaking of leading themselves, you wrote a book. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your book?
Yeah. So interestingly, I wrote this book, and it right as soon as it was published, right after it was published, is when I met Danielle. And it was like,
So you wrote that before Danielle?
Yep,
I didn't even know that.
just right before.
That's so beautiful.
And it was really cathartic for me to write, and God being said he wanted me to write it right then, and I knew that I sensed he wanted me to get it done because something else was coming. So yeah, I wrote it, published. It was published right before meeting her. It's called Lead Like the Sun, and it's becoming Love on Fire to Lead, and it's about a personal journey, how to basically like unlearn, let go of, and like remove the layers to emerge the love-filled leader God intends for you to be. And I did, and the book is, pieces of my personal story and how I did that to encourage other women to do it as well. So that's what it is. Kind of a coaching book, if you will.
Yeah. It's a good book. I've read it, guys. So make sure you grab your copy. It's on Amazon, and just Amazon, right?
Yep, Amazon.
We'll put a link in the description so you can purchase Michelle's book. I highly recommend it because anybody can be a leader. If you're a mom, you're a leader. If you are a supervisor at an organization, you're a leader. If you are a track coach, you're a leader. Like, anybody can be a leader. And so, which is kind of scary if you think about it. Because if anybody can be a leader, that means we need to know how to lead. Like, not just bright and shining like the SUN, but like the sun, SON, like Jesus. And he's one of the best leaders that we believe that you can follow. And that's why your book is so crucial.
Thank you. Yeah, it is kind of a play on words there's a line in the book that says that we would lead like the sun and like the sun and like women on fire for a world he came to save. And that word leader is so like it can be intimidating. And so some of the work of the book is to take some of that intimidation out and to understand, especially if you are walking with Jesus, by default of that, you are a leader, because he said that we were to take dominion over the earth and rule it. Right. So that that's our job. So how we do that is the roles we play, the places we're plugged in life, it's how we show up in those places. And so also in the book, I break down like maybe you're the bring in the heat leader, maybe you're and I break down what like some of these different terms or ways of leading are. And so I'll have to maybe share some of those sometime in more detail.
Yeah, we'll have a podcast on breaking down the book.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
That'll be good.
It's fun to identify yourself in those places and see like how you show up as a leader.
Yes. So make sure you guys get a copy of the book. And anything else that you want to say about yourself?
Just that it's super exciting and humbling and so much fun to get to share these Sunroom talks with all of you. We hope to get to know some of you through comments and interaction and community. We always like our circle to just get bigger and connect with all of you. It's our heart to help you grow.
Yeah. Yes and amen. Well, I guess I can kind of share a little bit about myself too. My name is Hannah Duran, and I am the program director here at SOAR. I'm a social worker. I have done a lot of different jobs, which I'll tell you about in a second. But I actually originally grew up in Bryan, Ohio. I'm sure nobody knows where that's at.
Shout out to
I call
Bryan.
it Cornfield, Ohio. That's all you need to know. It's a bunch of cornfields. So I grew up in the middle of nowhere. And I'm just like a small town girl, really. Don't put me in a big city. I will get lost. And so anyways, I grew up there with two parents. My parents are still married to this day. Thank the good Lord. And I grew up with two brothers. I have an older brother and a younger brother. And so I'm the only girl. So if you ever get a chance to see me being sassy, I grew up with two brothers. I don't know what else to tell you.
It's gonna happen.
It's gonna happen. Sorry. I've always been the type of person that I was just telling this to some ladies yesterday that I have always been the person that loves to stand up for someone else. So I don't like when people are bullied. But if someone's bullying me, it's like harder for me to deal with that. Like I take more. But if I see someone else being bullied, I'm like the first one that's gonna stand up and be like, no, you're not doing this. So I'll probably tell stories about that later. But anyway, so I ended up going to college at Spring Arbor University. I got my bachelor's degree in social work. And then I started living in Jackson, Michigan after that. And was just not really, like, just turned away from God, doing what a lot of 20-year-olds do. Not every 20-year-old. Please don't, if you're 20 years old, don't do that. Don't do what I did. But anyway, so just kind of lived a life of like partying and just other things that I'm sure I'll talk about on the podcast. But anyways, so I have had several just unhealthy relationships and didn't do well in that area for lots of reasons. And anyway, so then I ended up going back to school, getting my master's degree in social work. And while I was doing that, I was in a very unhealthy, abusive relationship. I somehow managed to get my degree. However, I was living in an abusive relationship, and for about 3 years or so. It was a lot longer than that, but it was we were together for about 3 years. And it's finally got to a point where I couldn't take it anymore, and I knew that this person was going to completely destroy everything about me. And so I decided to leave, and I finally got the courage to leave him. And then after that, he began stalking me, where I endured about 17 months of a process of him stalking me and and then trying to basically get him prosecuted in order to like leave me alone. And anyways, I ended up making 31 police reports. I've been through a lot of trauma, abuse, things like that. And at the time, I was a school social worker, and I have done several jobs of social work. I've worked with community mental health. I've worked with youth with disabilities. I've been in foster care, adoption, just different things. So I've had a wide variety of experience. However, at that time when I got out of my abusive relationship and was healing and trying to deal with all the trauma of stalking, I knew that I knew that I needed to heal from that. And I also felt God, kind of stirring something up within me, like he was moving me in a different direction. And so while I was healing or trying to heal, I was trying to do some therapy and things like that, but I knew that I needed people. And so I did some research and found out that SOAR had their community group. So that's how I met Michelle and all the lovely ladies at SOAR. I started attending community group for about 2.5 years, and they led me to healing and helped me grow. And I got some mentors out of doing all of that. And then I did a lot of the personal work. I attended even some of SOAR's classes that we offer here, and just really, really grew, really healed, really. So I had my own personal journey, not just for myself, but even with SOAR. And it was through that process that eventually as I healed and things like that, God was calling me to help women too. And I'm like, okay, so what do you want me to do, Lord? And I thought he was going to have me do my own organization that I had started. It was called Healing in the Waves. And then Michelle had approached me and said, hey, we need a program director. Are you interested? And I was like, Lord, what's going on? What's happening? And of course I just knew, because like this is the work that I want to do, is help women heal and grow like I had to go through. And so it's just awesome that God allowed me the grace to heal. But not just heal. He gave me the grace to still have my career and help people now.
Yeah.
So not only did he give me the grace to heal from all my trauma and abuse, but he gave me the grace to now help lead like the sun and be with all these amazing ladies. And so it's just really amazing to just be here in this spot doing all of this work. And if I can do it, you can do it. Anyone can do this. And that's really the point of what we're trying to do here, is help people learn that like you can go through your own trauma, heal from your own trauma and all the things that you've been through, and have purpose and come out soaring.
Yes.
And like God gave me wings through this whole journey and process. And so I'm just thankful. And just FYI, this won't be the last time I cry.
We do a lot of that around here, and it's just
Yeah.
it's just part of the journey.
It's just part of the journey. And the tears are more happy tears.
Yeah.
Because it's like to see what God has done in my life, that helps me, that gives me motivation and inspiration to help someone else
Absolutely.
in their journey. And it's just really beautiful.
You make me think of, when we go to visit ladies at the county jail, we walk in there so humbled because the fact that they would listen to us, whatever, but we're only able to do that because we have all walked our own stuff out. And, per usual, sometimes when we share like, oh, tell us about yourself, we tell the good things, the accomplishments, the, whatever. And that's nice. But you know what? When somebody says, who are you? They don't care about the letters behind your name. They don't care about the job or the role that you play.
Right.
They want to know your heart and, who are you? And, as you were starting to share your story, I thought, you know what? I did the stereotypical bio of who I am. But, and so like, thank you for being vulnerable and courageous for, and sharing your heart and in your journey and all of that, because, that's necessary and real. And just to put it out there briefly, I will tell everyone that I too am a survivor of sexual trauma. I grew up with addicts and alcoholics and walked that all out. I was living on my own by the time I was 16, working 3 jobs, trying to go to school, like lots of just repeated trauma and all that. And to say those things, like you just putting that out there like that, there's still so much that you're going to bless people with every time you share that piece. Every time, I never get over hearing that, because it still reminds me, there's so much that you've overcome, so much you can share, so many people that are in that process right now that you're going to bless. So I guess too, I'm going to say, tell your story to people when it's safe and comfortable, because, and so even if it's not sometimes, but just by saying it, it's empowering it's freeing and it's empowering to just say it.
Yep. And every time I'm like, I'm not going to cry. And there are still times where I don't cry. Like but then there are times where it's like, oh gosh, here comes the tears. And I want people to know that this sunroom, this is what we do.
Mm-hmm.
This is a safe space
Yep.
to share your story, to share what you have, what you need to overcome and what you have overcome. And this is why in our description we say like we have real conversations,
Mm-hmm.
because this is a safe space to do that. We, if you put anything in the comments or get a hold of us and share your story, we're going to be praying for you. We're going to
Absolutely.
be covering you, coming around you to support you in some kind of way. I just want to emphasize, this is a safe space.
Yeah.
This
And
isn't just Michelle and I talking this is like, no, we're doing life together.
mm-hmm.
And this is what we do. Is why I share my story, because it helped people.
Mm-hmm.
And because me sharing my story, every single time there's healing that happens.
Every time.
Every time.
It's powerful. And I loved it when you said something, like the things that you need or want to overcome. And it instantly brought to mind the present moment of our world, and how there's so much that people are walking through. And there's a lot of mental health issues and needs in our community and in our world. And so I hope that this can be a safe space too, where you can listen, relate, comment, and process and heal, because healing and freedom is what we're after here.
Yes.
And there's a lot of need right now. And so we want you all to know that we love you. We care about you and your life and what's happening. And interestingly enough, and I don't think this was any coincidence, this morning I happened to be on YouTube looking at something. And of course, there was another video right underneath it. And it was, and some of you may have seen this, there was a young man standing out on a city street sidewalk with a sign in front of him that said, do you need a hug? Are you suffering from depression or anxiety? And then the back of his sweatshirt said something about life is so much better with you in it.
Aww.
And then, what really blew me away, and this just tells me the degree to which we need to have conversation and process and heal, is total strangers, so it seemed, were walking up to this young man, getting a hug, and he said, "Are you okay?" And they would just start sharing the things. And like this woman said, "Well, I just found out my mom has cancer." And he said, "Are you doing okay right now?" And she said, "No, I'm really hurting, but this hug helped." And then another man came up, like it was just one after another of people walking up to this young boy on the sidewalk, so desperate for a hug and just blurting out the things they're carrying.
Wow.
And it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, something so simple, and how much relief those people got to feel in that moment, and the care from just receiving a hug. So little gestures, we need them.
Yeah.
We need them. We need each other.
Yes.
And we need them. And I just hope that this is one of those places for all of you.
Yeah. Same here. And so, this is going to be awesome. This is just the beginning.
Yeah.
Just so you know. This is just the beginning. Oh, just wait till Michelle and I get going.
Oh boy.
On any given Tuesday.
Yes. That's one of our favorite sayings about Tuesdays. You never know what's going to happen on any given Tuesday around here.
You never know. So we hope that you can gain something from this, some sort of freedom and healing. And we just hope that you tune in, and it's going to be great. And please feel free to leave a comment or message us. And if you need prayer or you need some support or anything like that, please feel free to get in touch with us. And I also lastly want to say thank you to our producer.
Yes, we have
Miss
to introduce her.
Chelsea. You
Chelsea.
gotta maybe get on the boards here and at least say hi and maybe a couple things about yourself. Just so you know, everyone, you can't see her, but we have Miss Chelsea Woods, and she's the one helping produce all of this for us.
Yes. So I'm the producer, and how exciting that we're finally here.
Yeah.
Feels like it's been months leading up to this moment talking about this is why we need a podcast. This is why we need a podcast. And here we are. A little bit about me. I have been at SOAR for just over 2 years. I started here right after I graduated from college, and I had no idea that this is what I had passion for. And the Lord just set my heart on fire. Before coming here, I always thought it was like Jesus was come as you are. And what I've learned here at SOAR with these women is that Jesus does say come as you are, but he also says, I'm going to meet you where you're at and I'm going to help you rise. And so that's what I'm so excited that this podcast is going to be another tool for people to be able to put into their tool belts to work through trauma and process through things, and just for it to be a safe space, like Hannah and Michelle have both said. So I'm just really grateful to get the opportunity to be back here behind the camera. So I told Michelle this morning I'm really grateful that I don't have to dress up and look nice to be on camera. I can sit back here in my yoga pants and be comfortable. And
just wait
Yes.
for these bomb drops.
That's
that
exactly
Chelsea
where I
does.
was going.
She's gonna all of a sudden you're gonna hear something. You're not even gonna see Chelsea, and she's gonna say something. You're gonna be like, "Wait, what? What did she just say?" she just drops bombs on us all the time. They're like short and sweet, but they're like a bomb.
That's what I was gonna. She's like this ninja of wisdom and insight. Like she just hangs back and doesn't say a lot, and then all of a sudden it's just this little mic dropper that happens, and she just comes out of nowhere and hits us with this wisdom bomb or something, and we're just like, what? Where did that come from? So anyway, we look forward to getting to share Chelsea with you and all of that too.
yes, super excited.
Yes.
Thanks, Chelsea. And so we are God put us together as a lovely trio because he's got stuff for you guys. And so bring all the comments. We're looking so forward to more time together. We're gonna have a lot of fun. Gonna cry a little. Gonna get into some passionate conversation.
We might throw in some dad jokes.
Some mom jokes. God, listen, if you don't have humor, you are not going to survive this life. Period. Or this work. Period. So humor is incredibly necessary.
Yep.
And so I'd just like to pray us out. We do that a lot around here. We pray in, we pray out. And so if you're okay with it, I'd just like to say, you good with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, then I'm just going to pray us out and pray over all of you, and we'll rock on with our Tuesday. All right. Heavenly Father, Lord, we are so thankful for each and every person who is watching this podcast. And right now, Lord, I lift them up to you in that, God, you know exactly what they're walking through, whether it's a diagnosis, whether it's a relationship issue, marriage, children, job, whatever it is, God, you're in the details, right? You, Lord, you're already in it with them and you know the outcome. And so, Lord, I just lift them up to you today, God, that you would give them peace in their heart, peace in their minds, a reminder that you have plans. You say you have plans to give them hope and a future. And God, it is not to harm them, but to prosper them. Okay. And so, Lord, let that knowledge and peace of that truth just fall on them right now, and that they can rest in you and know that whatever it is, you've got them. You've got the plan, and they just need to rest in you and know that you are going to take them in the way that they should go and lead them into that plan completely and fully. You love and adore them. And so, Lord, for any lady that's out there right now that is going through, they're caught up maybe in a trafficking situation, they're caught up in addiction, they're caught up in homelessness, or they're having mental health struggles, Lord, we just pray, Father, that you would just for healing for them, for restoration, God, that you would bring that right now in the mighty name of Jesus. That's who you are. That's the work you do. You are a protector, a provider, a healer, a way maker. It's just who you are and what you do. So God, please do that work in, through, and for them right now in the name of Jesus. And most of all, Lord, I pray for your love to be so real and so palatable to them in this moment, Father, that it just fills them to overflowing, Lord, and they are moved in their spirit, in their hearts, and their minds closer to you, because you are the true and only answer, the true and only way forward. And so we love you. We thank you. Thank you. I bless Hannah and Chelsea for their hard work and just who you've made them and continue to grow them to be, and every single one watching this podcast. God, we love you. We thank you for this time together in the sunroom. Go with everyone today. Keep them safe, blessed, and we will be together again soon in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Woo. Well,
All right. We